Japanese Imperial Navy planners had studied American military capabilities for decades. Intelligence gathering, industrial assessments, fleet observations. Their conclusion was clear: America possessed enormous industrial capacity, but lacked what Japanese called Yamato Damashii, warrior spirit. Americans were viewed as soft, individualistic merchants who would crumble when facing determined warriors willing to die for victory. The Imperial Japanese Navy in 1941 was a masterpiece of engineering. Yamato and Musashi, 70,000-ton battleships, largest, most powerful ever built. Shokaku and Zuikaku, fleet carriers representing cutting-edge design, Zero fighters that outmaneuvered anything Americans possessed, naval aviators trained to standards, producing finest carrier pilots in the world. This wasn't propaganda. In 1941, Japanese Navy was objectively superior to American Pacific Fleet in almost every measurable category. Better ships, better aircraft, better trained crews, better combat doctrine. Japanese planners understood American industrial potential, but calculated devastating first strike would cripple American naval power long enough for Japan to secure Southeast Asian resource zones, establish defensive perimeter, force negotiated settlement before American industry mobilized. Americans, the reasoning went, would not sustain long war when faced with mounting casualties and no clear path to victory. This assessment proved catastrophically wrong. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor, 5 battleships sunk, 3 heavily damaged, 188 aircraft destroyed, over 2,400 Americans killed. Japanese losses negligible, 29 aircraft, fewer than 100 casualties. Pacific Fleet's battle line was wrecked, burning, sinking. Admiral Nagumo's carriers had struck Americans in their own territory with impunity. America had been humiliated, exposed as unprepared and vulnerable. Victories continued. With shocking speed, Wake Island fell. Philippines invaded. Singapore, Britain's great fortress in Asia, surrendered in February. Over 100,000 British, Australian, Indian troops captured, largest capitulation in British military history. Hong Kong fell. Dutch East Indies overrun. Burma invaded. By March 1942, Japan had conquered territory larger than continental Europe. Speed and scope seemed to validate every assumption about Japanese military superiority and American weakness when forces met in battle pattern was consistent. Japanese tactical skill and fighting spirit overcame American numerical advantages. Battle of Java Sea. Japanese cruisers decimated Allied fleet. 5 ships sunk without Japanese loss. Carrier raids into Indian Ocean. Japanese aircraft sank British battleship Prince of Wales and battle cruiser Repulse through air attack alone. Japan's carrier fleet was finest in world. Then came intelligence reports that didn't fit comfortable narrative, reports from agents in the United States. Data that seemed impossible. American shipyards producing warships at rates violating everything Japanese planners understood. Destroyers launching every 2 or 3 days. Escort carriers appearing in weeks rather than years. Liberty cargo ships built using assembly line methods. These numbers were checked through multiple intelligence channels. Confirmed, rechecked, still seemed impossible. Japan had most advanced shipbuilding industry in Asia, yet Japanese shipyards required 20 to 24 months construct single fleet carrier. Americans claiming 8 to 10 months, using prefabrication, modular construction, treating warships like automobiles rolling off assembly line. Implications were disturbing, but could be rationalized, perhaps sacrificing quality for quantity. Perhaps these rapidly constructed ships would prove inferior in combat. Japanese quality would triumph over American quantity. Coral Sea, May 1942 was first carrier engagement, where opposing fleets never sighted each other. Tactical result, roughly even. Japan lost light carrier Shoho. America lost fleet carrier Lexington. Both sides suffered damage. Both lost aircraft and aircrew. But crucial difference Japanese commanders only gradually recognized. Lexington was irreplaceable by Japanese standards, 30,000-ton fleet carrier representing years construction. Yet by November, just 6 months later, Americans commissioned new carrier Bonham Richard, had several more Essex-class in advanced construction. Shoho could not and would not be replaced. Every Japanese carrier loss was permanent. Americans could absorb losses that would cripple Japan's fleet, could replace. Ships, aircraft, crews faster than Japan, could inflict casualties. Seeds of doubt had been planted. Midway June 4, 1942, transformed doubt into stark terror. American dive bombers catching Japanese carriers at most vulnerable moment, bombs striking Akagi Kagasoryu, while flight decks packed with fueled armed aircraft. Catastrophic fires. 4 fleet carriers lost single day. What's often overlooked is tactical disaster revealed something more fundamental. Elite pilots, navigators, mechanics, flight deck crews who went down with those ships represented irreplaceable asset. Men. Trained for years, combat experience over China, Pearl Harbor veterans. Japanese training system produced superbly skilled aviators through long, intensive instruction, but couldn't produce them quickly, couldn't produce them in numbers necessary to replace combat losses. Americans adopted different philosophy. Mass production of competent pilots rather than small numbers of elite aviators. System designed for attrition warfare, for absorbing casualties and replacing them from pipeline producing. Thousands new pilots monthly. Guadalcanal, beginning August 1942, became revelation, shattering Japanese assumptions. Not through single battle, but cumulative grinding reality of 6-month campaign, exposing every critical disparity. Island was over 1,000 miles from nearest major American base. Yet within days, American engineers had airfield operational. Within weeks, fuel depots, ammunition dumps, repair facilities, medical stations. Supplies flowed continuously, ships arrived, material piled up. Japanese response was Tokyo Express. Fast destroyer runs at night, carrying supplies, reinforcements. Worked briefly, then American air power made it unsustainable. Every run risked destroyers Japan couldn't replace. Americans could afford losses. Mathematics inexorable. American forces operated under assumptions seemed insane to Japanese officers. Artillery ammunition fired in barges consuming more shells hours than Japanese forces received weeks. Marines called artillery whenever encountered resistance. Waited. Let firepower reduce positions. Then advanced. Seemed cowardly, wasteful, inefficient, but undeniably effective. American casualties were lower, sustainable. Replacements arrived continuously. Japanese fought with extraordinary courage. Launched night attacks, banzai charges. Died in place. Achieved nothing decisive. Americans absorbed casualties, brought replacements, kept grinding forward. Contrast in supply philosophies revealed fundamental differences. Japanese logistics operated calculated sufficiency. Determine minimum supplies necessary. Distribute efficiently, maximize combat power, minimize waste. System worked when supply lines functioned. American logistics operated abundance redundancy, stockpiling vast quantities every level, accepting waste as preferable to shortage. Americans never ran out of ammunition mid-battle, never went hungry, never lacked medical care. Japanese constantly short everything. By February 1943, Japan evacuated Guadalcanal, not through defeat in battle, through recognition, sustaining forces their bled resources unsustainably, withdrawal executed skillfully, but still retreat. First time Japanese force concede territory. Psychological impact rippled through imperial military. Intelligence reports early to mid-1943 painted increasingly disturbing picture. American aircraft production exceeded 20,000 planes monthly. Japan's entire 1943 production was 16,000. For year, Americans produced more aircraft single month than Japan produced 12. Worse, American aircraft designs improving rapidly. F6F Hellcat appeared specifically designed counter Zero. Based on captured Akutan Zero July 1942, Americans obtained intact Zero. Test flew extensively, discovered every weakness, distributed tactical bulletins every fighter squadron, then designed aircraft exploit those weaknesses, methodical systematic problem-solving, production differential extended beyond aircraft. American shipyards launched Essex-class fleet carriers monthly through 1943-44. Americans built them 8 to 10 months. By mid-1944, American carrier task forces routinely deployed more carriers single operation than Japan possessed entire fleet. Task Force 58, 15 fleet carriers, 8 light carriers, over 900 aircraft operating thousands of miles from Pearl Harbor for months without returning port. How is this possible? Fleet train, underway replenishment. Logistics systems so sophisticated could resupply entire carrier task forces at sea. Fuel, ammunition, aviation, gasoline, bombs, torpedoes, spare parts, food, everything. Tankers, ammunition, ships, supply vessels, escort carriers, accompanied combat fleet. Task forces refueled, rearmed at sea. Transferred damaged aircraft, receive replacements without entering port. Operational flexibility meant American carriers never broke off operations for logistics. Maintained pressure continuously. Japanese carriers operated traditional model. Sortie from port, conduct operations, return to replenish. Tempo dictated by logistics. Americans eliminated logistics as limiting factor. Battle of Philippine Sea, June 19th to 20th, 1944 demonstrated cumulative effect. All these advantages. Japanese Operation AGO, decisive battle, destroy American carrier forces. Admiral Ozawa commanded mobile fleet, 9 carriers, 470 aircraft. Everything Japan could scrape together. Plan relied on assumptions. Japanese aircraft, longer range, superior pilots. Tactical coordination, overcoming numerical advantage. Land-based aircraft supporting Americans. Caught in vice. None survived contact with reality. American radar detected incoming strikes over 100 miles range. F6F Hellcats launched vector to intercept. Combat air patrol didn't wait for Japanese to reach fleet. Intercepted at range. Result was slaughter. Great Marianas turkey shoot. 369 Japanese aircraft shot down June 19th. Single day. American losses 30 aircraft. Kill ratio over 12 to 1 in American favor. Catastrophically in American favor. This wasn't luck, was cumulative effect, better aircraft training tactics, radar communications, overwhelming numerical superiority. American submarines located Japanese carriers. Sank Taiho, Ozawa's flagship. Sank Shokaku, Pearl Harbor veteran. American carrier aircraft found remaining carriers next day. Sank Hyo. Damaged others. 48 hours Japanese naval aviation ceased to exist as effective force. Not through months attrition. Through 2 days annihilation. Aftermath forced Japanese leadership confront reality. Could not defeat America conventional warfare. Could not match production. Could not replace losses. Every battle consumed irreplaceable Japanese assets. Every battle saw Americans return stronger. Mathematics inexorable. Japan entered war, 6 large fleet carriers, 4 light carriers. Lost most, built replacements slowly. Lost those. By mid-44 possessed carriers but lacked aircraft pilots operate them. America entered war, 7 fleet carriers. Lost several. Now operated over 100 carriers, all types. Disparity wasn't narrowing, growing exponentially. American submarine campaign destroyed Japanese merchant marines systematically. Unrestricted submarine warfare targeting tankers, cargo ships, troop transports. American submarines had terrible torpedoes, early war, Mark 14 defective. Ran too deep, failed explode, submariners complained, were ignored. Finally forced Navy acknowledge problem. Torpedoes fixed, then submarines became devastatingly effective. Japan began war, 6 million tons merchant shipping. Lost over 8 million tons during war. New construction replaced some losses, never enough. By 1945, Japanese merchant fleet skeletal, oil from Dutch East Indies couldn't reach Japan, food from Southeast Asia couldn't reach Japan, industrial production collapsed, civilian population starved. Winter 44-45 Japanese civilians received rice rations below subsistence. People froze, died from malnutrition. 300 submarines, 1,600 patrols, 15,000 sailors sank. 52% Japanese merchant shipping. Campaign received little publicity, but may have been more strategically decisive. B. 29 strategic bombing demonstrated American industrial capacity applied to systematic destruction. Most advanced bomber world, pressurized cabin, remote-controlled gun turrets. Range to reach Japan from Marianas. Each aircraft costs $600,000. More than destroyer. Development program cost over $2 billion. More than Manhattan Project. America investing resources equivalent entire Japanese annual military budget into single aircraft type and producing them thousands. Deploying to Saipan, Tinian, Guam, once Marianas captured. March 9, 1945 Operation Meeting House. Tokyo, 334 B-29s, 1,700 tons incendiaries. Firestorm, 16 square miles burned. Over 100,000 dead. Million homeless, single night, single raid. Casualties exceeded both atomic bombings combined. Repeated, Osaka, Nagoya, Kobe, Yokohama. City after city, systematic incineration. Japanese urban areas. American bombers dropped propaganda leaflets beforehand, announcing targets, warning civilians evacuate, demonstrating government couldn't protect population. Most crushing realization came examining captured American supplied dumps. Japanese officers walked through American logistics bases, confronted physical evidence, industrial disparity. Warehouses size city blocks, stacked floors ceiling with supplies. Single American ammunition dump contained more artillery shells than entire Japanese army and theater possessed. Routine supply for single corps, weak supply. Food supplies equally staggering. Rations for tens thousands troops, variety including meat. Vegetables, fruit, desserts, coffee, cigarettes, candy. Japanese survived on rice, sometimes, often went hungry. Medical supplies demonstrated technological gap. American field hospitals had penicillin, sulfa drugs, plasma, whole blood surgical equipment, x-ray machines. Survival rates from battlefield wounds over 90%. Japanese field medicine primitive, lacked antibiotics, plasma adequate surgical capacity. Wounded frequently died, infections, blood loss. Vehicle disparity told complete story. American dumps had trucks, jeeps, half-tracks, amphibious vehicles, bulldozers, cranes, generators. Japanese still relied horses. Soldiers marched, carried equipment on backs. By early 45, strategic situation hopeless. Philippines lost, Iwo Jima taken, Okinawa under assault, American carriers raiding home waters, battleships bombarding coastal cities, submarines sinking everything, B-29s burning cities nightly, industrial production collapsed, food distribution failed, transportation destroyed, military still possessed millions troops, still prepared fight. Operation Ketsugo, Homeland Defense. Every citizen mobilized, but military leaders understood truth. Couldn't win, couldn't fight to draw, could only prolong, make invasion costly, hope negotiated settlement, unconditional surrender unacceptable, against Bushido, against national honor, yet alternative was national suicide. The day Japan learned American production impossible defeat was not single day, was accumulation. Each battle revealed new dimension disparity. Perhaps ultimate revelation came simple statistic, war production comparison, total war years. Japan produced 76,000 aircraft, 5,000 tanks, 63 destroyers, 25 aircraft carriers, all types. America produced 324,000 aircraft, 89,000 tanks, 349 destroyers, 147 aircraft carriers. In every category, America outproduced Japan by factors 5-10, sometimes more, while simultaneously fighting Germany, Italy, while maintaining civilian economy, while supporting Britain, Soviet Union, China, everyone. Japan faced opponent whose industrial capacity, so vast victory, mathematically impossible, regardless tactical skill, strategic brilliance, warrior spirit. Modern industrial warfare, transformed military effectiveness. Nation producing war material, these rates, sustaining operations, these intensities, replacing losses, this rapidly, was effectively invincible. Bushido meant nothing against unlimited artillery. Martial discipline meant nothing against overwhelming air power. Tactical brilliance meant nothing outnumbered 50 to 1. War was decided in factories, shipyards, oil refineries, not battlefields. Japan entered war believing spirit would overcome material. Discovered material in sufficient quantity rendered spirit irrelevant. This was painful truth Japanese military leadership confronted as homeland burned. Question wasn't whether Japan would be defeated, was when and how much destruction Japan would endure before admitting reality.